Down here in the bottom left position, give it up for SOS. He is, of course, against up this guy up here in the top right. He is Ragnarok. Now, obviously, we did see SOS play a little bit earlier. You know, he did relatively well versus his opponent, but you know, it was a hard series for him to kind of stick around in. Hang on, let me just no, Armani was looking pretty good versus SOS. But, you know, Ragnarok is a whole different style of Zerg, you know. If I had to compare him to any Zerg, I would have to say he is most like True. If you guys remember True from back in the day, aka a couple of years ago. And I mean that in the terms of he's a bit aggressive, he's got the Ling control, and he just really looks to stay in that mid-game situation. The late game is okay, but he would prefer not to get into that if he can avoid it. Looks like SOS not going to take any chances with this one, as we will see him kind of just power up. Ragnarok, my man. Very fast third hatch coming on down, so he's just going to be powering up, droning up, and then trying to overwhelm his opponent, like I said. But yeah, I'm interested to see what SOS is going to do to start things off here. More than likely, I want to say Stargate on this map. And I may want to say it, but he ain't listening. It is going to be Twilight Council. And now we just have to see if he does decide to go for the balls to the wall Dark Shrine strategy, or if he's just going to go for, say, Adept Glaives into Immortal production, Immortal Charge Lot, and then go from there. There's a lot of different ways that he can kind of go with it, which is why he is so terrifying as a player. Alright, there you go. It is going to be that Dark Shrine strategy here, so Ragnarok really does need to get a little bit of information with this. Still not sitting the Overlord in. He's being overly cautious with them. But he does have the Roach Warren down already. Yeah, he hasn't seen it just yet. Probably thinking that it's... you know, he hasn't really seen a lot yet, but this is a decent catch here. The Adepts trying to shoo away. One of them might go down. It's very close. It looks like with that Ling's dying breath, he will get one of them. But we do have to keep an eye out here because there's still no detection, no spores, no lair, just pure roaches. See, I'm trying to kind of make that exciting, but at the same time, it's really risky. But there we go. Spore Crawl is going to go down for Ragnarok. So, yeah, he's just got to hold on a little bit here. Looks like the Robo facility won't be added onto this. So that if he does warp in the DTs, they're going to have to be on the other side of the map. Or on one of the pylons over here. And indeed, he does kind of just walk them over. Unfortunately, though, that does mean that they are very vulnerable to getting picked off. Going their separate ways. As we do have Lair and Light. Yeah, there you go. He's not going to stick on this for too long. Instead, just going to go straight up to Immortals, just so that he can stay safe in the event that Ragnarok decides to just go for one big push. Which, honestly, other than the creep spread, it looks like he's kind of powering up for that kind of move. We're getting tons of roaches. He has cut drone production for the longest time. And he's just pumping out queen after queen. Look at that creep highway. Kind of making up for the fact that the queens have not been spreading that creep, building up that transfuse energy. Now, Ragnarok is also going to get that safety spire up behind this. Basically, what that will allow him to do is kind of transition into mutas as he fights the army, because the army of SOS is more than likely going to be very heavily ground focused. He'll probably get some sentries just for some utility for the guardian shields and stuff, but I mean, sentries don't really do too well versus mutas. So here we go. Ragnarok is moving out with a good chunk of his army. The queens are not coming with it, it looks like. I'm trying to keep an eye on them, just in case. But this is still a very dicey situation for SOS. He's going to have to fight around these choke points so that his force fields can do work. But there's not that much force field energy left, and the Ravager's going to crush through a lot of this. The Overseers, making sure that those DTs have to morph into Archons. The Shield Battery Overcharge gonna keep this alive, and looks like Ragnarok is gonna be forced back, but he is still gonna do what he can to make this a very damaging trade for SOS. Realizing that he can't break his way through, he will just kind of pull back, try and fight in a location with an advantage, but you know, SOS is being very patient, very methodical in how he is addressing this. He's not moving too far forward, giving Ragnarok the chance to pounce. Shield batteries in the backfield, keeping those Archons alive, so they are harnessing quite a bit of energy to soak up a lot of these Ravager shots. The Zealots in the front doing what they can as well. The Bile's pretty good. Get rid of the sentries. But there's just a few too many Immortals, I think. And without any sort of detection, he can't deal with the DTs, which is absolutely decimating his army in the front. So Ragnarok forced all the way back. He's going to have to drone quite heavily behind this, as he has fallen behind in terms of that worker count. Yeah, he expended quite a bit to make that work. So now it's just going to be a big, slow build-up for him. We also see that he has not built any mutas, so the Spire's kind of just there as an option. Wait, did he cancel the Spire? He did. It looks like he did want to... It looks like he just wanted to focus on his ground army there. I can't disagree with that, but I also think just kind of having it since you already built it, or were already building it. Stalkers with a very aggressive blink forward will have to retreat, but they do get a couple of nice pickoffs. This DT, 5 kills because there is no detection on that side of the map. SOS is just kind of teching up behind this. He's getting that Templar Archives behind this, so he's going to be able to get Storm, which is just absolutely fantastic versus the army that Ragnarok is building right now. It is very susceptible to the weather. Yeah, ton of Banes, ton of Lings. Those Ravagers aren't really that beefy. Gonna clean up some of those rocks so that he can keep a good concave as well. The Stalker's just continuously pressing forward, looking for those pickoffs. They will be able to get a little bit here, but he's got to be very careful with that. I mean, you really don't want to overextend here as SOS. You are holding on to this attack by a paper-thin margin. Little run by right there, nothing too much. Stalkers in the front have to blink away. These Banelings going for the meat of this army. They're getting decent connections here. The Stalker wall. Oh my goodness, that was about as bad as it could get for SOS. But still, he has a couple of Immortals. He has these Archons, and he's going to keep pushing this way forward. Question is, does he have enough to deal with the Remax here? 15 more Roaches on the way to reinforce this army. And yeah, SOS has to back up. Looks like in terms of the upgrades, SOS is about to take a 1 upgrade lead. He will also have that Storm, which is really just, I think, the worst case scenario for Ragnarok here, because you can kind of see he's not necessarily all in. He still has 4 bases and a pretty good economy, 70 workers. It's just that he's not really ahead of SOS in any way, and this is going to put him behind a little bit. Looks like a huge Templar Storm drop going to crush through a lot of his economy. 7 or 9 workers going down. He's going to look to punish SOS for that, but the Storms, again, just make it so difficult to engage this army. SOS doesn't even really need to defend that base. He can take the base on the other side of the map, but he just can't afford to lose his army right now. Ragnarok rotating around to the right side. The Baneley is going to try and get on top of this. They start to get a couple of good connections, getting rid of a lot of health on those Immortals, but with all the Banelings gone, it's going to come down to the Roaches, and actually, the Roaches starting to push their way through the shield battery, overcharged and destroyed. Looks like the High Templars don't have enough energy for Storm, so he's going to have to try and bank up for that, but now Ragnarok dropping SOS's supply. 87 to 140 right now. Looking for that killing blow. The Archons not going to be able to make their way in. 1 Immortal in the backfield is all that he has. Really to help out, trying to keep the High Templar alive as long as possible, but in the end of the day, do you see what I see, ladies and gentlemen? We have a Forge and a cheeky little probe as well. So we got ourselves a little bit of a cannon rush. We've already had Ragnarok forced to take the 3rd base. And you can kind of see he's expecting something here, as he does have that Overlord in position to spot that pylon. So that's a pretty big tell for him, and it looks like he's actually going to try and defend. Sends a couple of those drones. I honestly don't know if he really has to do that, to be completely honest. But so far, this is a complete wall off here for SOS. That photon cannon should be able to get up safely. And the big question is he going to let this finish? Looks like the answer is no. So all he has to do now is defend the natural, and he should be perfectly fine, as SOS is not going to be following this up with too many more shenanigans. Instead, just going to macro his way out of it. So, you know, not the biggest of investments for SOS. I gotta say that was pretty worth it for delaying the natural. Not even gonna bother to try and take that position. Instead, going for the more aggressive third base. That's gotta send a shiver up SOS's spine, knowing how close the Zerg is going to be to him once that base finishes. Yeah, you need a couple more lings there, Ragnarok. I wouldn't really try and engage into that. Following this up, we do have that Stargate coming on in for a little bit of Oracle action. We'll have to see if SOS is going to go for Void Rays like we saw in his games versus Armani. You know, I'm never against Void Rays, but against a player like Ragnarok, who, again, likes aggressive builds, likes to push relatively quickly with both queens, roaches, and such. It's just really leaving yourself open to way too much. Yeah, even gonna get the shield battery for defense. It is gonna be Void Rays. Zling's gonna try and get a cancel on the third base. SOS actually doesn't have any adepts right here for the defense, so that will be a very quick cancel on that next side. The adepts, though, gonna try and make their way in. They will focus fire down a couple of these drones. Even gonna be a nuisance in the main base since there is nothing here to defend. And now, not only did these lings cancel the third base, they also got a full scout off of the fact that it's indeed a Void Ray. So you see more queens on the way. You saw the roaches are going to start to pop out here 5 at a time. Ragnarok has halted drone production. And that's really how SOS has to ring the alarm bells. He's got to see how many lings there are, how many roaches there are, and how many drones there aren't. Because he is about to get hit relatively hard. As I say that, 7 more drones on the way. Okay. Yeah, 7 more drones, but at the same time, he's also got his army moving across the map. That's a lot of queens. SOS going to send a couple of Void Rays out to do what they can. He is pumping out 2 at a time, so as long as he can keep this fight going for a while and chronoing those out, he should be okay, especially if he can get a lot of damage done with these guys over here. But here we go. He doesn't really have a lot of units back at home to defend. The Void Rays trying to get on top of this. They were on move command, not really doing a lot of damage. The Biles gonna try and get rid of the photon cannon, but it is holding strong. The shield battery overcharge is enough to keep that alive, and that is a lot of extra damage that Ragnarok really didn't want to take. The Void Rays do take one Vile connection here, but there is enough energy to keep them alive for a while. And keep in mind, he still has overcharge on the Voids. One of them will go down, but Ragnarok is heavily supply blocked. These 2 Void Rays in the back doing work. So this is now do or die. And it's starting to look like, you know, like I said, that Void Ray count is going to continue to rise. And it's pretty much die here for Ragnarok. Just not a ton of DPS. He can't get through those shields as quickly as he might like. SOS. SOS, buddy, you still have overcharge. Like, you can kill those queens a lot faster than you are. I think that's a little bit of a mistake on SOS's part. But at the end of the day, yeah, Ragnarok just really isn't going to be able to follow this up. There you have it. GG. So once again, of course, SOS being the good little nuisance that Ire requires him to be, forcing Ragnarok to take that third base down on the low ground. I'm going to tell you what, Lightshade has one of the shortest rush distances in the pool. So I'm not sure that SOS is going to be too happy that that base is right there. Because that's going to be creep spread. That's going to be a quick avenue for queens to walk across. That's going to be really, really difficult to kind of hold on against any sort of big aggressive push like we saw last game. So that's why I'm a little bit worried here for SOS. Not saying that he's dead by any stretch of the imagination, but we do see quite a few lings being pumped out from Ragnarok. He currently has 6. And actually going to make quite a few more, so he's going to be looking to break down the wall of SOS here, it looks like. Now keep in mind, building this many lings this early on without that much larva production is going to hamper his growth slightly. So that kind of forces him into that kind of forward attacking position. And SOS is actually getting ready to counter it almost. We have Twilight Council as the next tech of choice. Maybe a deck Glaives? Potentially? Yeah, I think it's gonna be Adept Glaives just because I don't see a robo facility. See, I just find this really interesting. I don't think this is the most optimal way for SOS to do this, because he has to walk his DTs across the map. They're gonna waste time that they're not at killing, and you don't really have a follow-up to it either. You know, when we see DTs, we expect the Archon drops behind it, and that just really removes a lot of utility from this for SOS. Ragnarok is respecting it, however. He's got the Roach Warren on the way, as well as a couple of Spores. The Adepts trying to find an angle to get into the mineral line, but they will not be able to find it just yet. Now as the Roaches start to kind of come out and build in number, these Adepts aren't going to be as useful. But okay, I'm liking this. You know, he's got the Dark Shrine, but he's not utilizing it. Instead going for Adept Glaive, so technically Mind Games? But this is more of a straight up game right here. He gets a cancel on the third base, retreats, and now that he's seen the number of Adepts, that kind of rings the alarm bells in his head. That tells him that, hey, there's going to be Glaives, and they're going to be coming soon, so I need to pump out Roaches. I need to get my lair up, and if possible, he could also block off his wall a little bit to keep the Adepts from coming in. Robo facility a little bit later as the DTs gonna break through some of this army as Ragnarok thought to move out. The Overseer's not in position. But Ragnarok is once again going to be going for a big attack like he did on 2,000 Atmospheres, minus the Queens. But that is going to tell SOS that there's not that much back at home to defend. And he is going to be able to get first blood in this trade, as the Roaches now going to be without Zergling support. They had to come home to defend. And this attack, which was looking pretty scary for Ragnarok, is now looking much more manageable. The Adepts, though, they do get caught, but they've kind of done their duty. As we can see here, 8 drones going down. The third base has been gutted. He's trying to get the third base, but he's going to sacrifice quite a bit to get it. In fact, not going to be able to finish it off yet. Buying SOS a lot of time to kind of build up that army at the top of the ramp. I mean, I don't think he really cares about losing that base that much, because he is equal on workers with the Zerg player. It is 48 to 48. Those are still building up here, but down here it kind of tells you the real story. Gonna see that the army is big and bad and ready to go. SOS kind of just gonna power up a little bit here, wait for the Warp Prism to move across the map, as Ragnarok trying to play catch up in terms of that economy. At this point, he's kind of just hoping that SOS doesn't have the need to attack. He's gonna be sticking with that mid-tier army that we saw last time with the Banes, the Lings, and the Roaches. The upgrades aren't going to be that good either, I hate to say. So he's kind of just banking on hoping that SOS is not transitioning as well as he is. That's a Disruptor. That is deadly versus this. Phoenix still flying around, just getting a little bit more information. As this time Ragnarok gonna go for a much faster infestation pit. I really like this little bit of a change from game number 1. That's gonna allow him to transition much quicker and kind of not fall into the same pitfall that he did. Now, I know he won game number 1, but it was very close. It could have gone either way with the way he was playing it out. So this is just going to try and help him get a little bit crisper, a little bit cleaner with these engagements. Looks like that Disruptor kind of hanging around, playing it very close to the heart here, looking for a couple of good pickoffs. But won't really be able to find too much, as the army is good enough to kind of just stop this from ever being effective. 2 Disruptors? Maybe. 1 Disruptor? No. But know what, he's gonna try anyway, as the army kind of just splitting up, shooing it away. The Phoenix is fake. But still going to get some really good information here. Sees the fact that Hive is already down, so that kind of tells him, okay, I just need to keep building my army up. I just need to make sure that I'm okay and take a good engagement. So that's why he's kind of just staying close to home. He's not really going to try and push the issue at all. Alright. Not too bad there. Ragnarok going for the full-on ground army. He knows that there's nothing in the sky. He does not care about getting anything that shoots up. Ultralisks are on the way. That's going to be a pretty tanky army for him here. He does find a good position between SOS's 4th and his 3rd base, allowing him to take a relatively okay fight here, but that is a huge concave. The Vipers pulling forward those Colossus, but they are getting quite a bit of extra damage before they actually go down. The Banelings rolling on through, however, and SOS's supply has absolutely plummeted right there. Now, granted, he still does have one Immortal helping him tank a lot of that damage, and the Disruptor in the back. If it gets a good connection, he's going to be able to hold on. But Ragnarok is being very, very cautious with how he's engaging into this. He knows that he can't fight with what little he has. He's got to wait for the reinforcements. And as he pulls those together, it's SOS who has to retreat. Ragnarok is maxed out again. SOS trying to go up to Templar Archive to get that Storm, which is going to be pretty vital for dealing with that massive amount of Banelings that are going to be on the field. Currently at 14 with more on the way, 16 more to be precise. Only enough, this is kind of just to get rid of some of that supply. It is going to pull back quite a bit of this army, which is going to allow Ragnarok to set up once again. A big Zealot run by is getting set up. It's not going to be there in time. Disruptor does not get its shot off. It is yoinked into the Banes. The last Colossus falls. The Archons doing what they can. The shield battery overcharge is crucial for this defense, but SOS is starting to get cleaned up in the natural base. He's forced to warp in as much as humanly possible, but he's always just a little bit too low. The Zealots, they do manage to clear out this mineral line, and the main army of Ragnarok was defeated. But you're still having trouble dealing with the roaches, and they're just getting on top of all this tech. Take a look at this. You know, SOS is very close in terms of that units lost count. So he's not trading as efficiently as he necessarily should at this stage in the game. Funnily enough, though, the reason those roaches weren't doing a lot of damage is because they have absolutely no upgrades other than one, +1 Carapace. So just trying to stick with Ling Ultra Bane for the most part with this army is Ragnarok. And SOS is being honestly given quite a lot of time to rebuild. He's got so many Archons right now. I think that's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-ish Archons on the field so far, with more on the way. Does he have Storm? He did not. Instead, just going to focus purely on all of this delicious splash. These Banes won't know what hit them. things have kind of turned a little bit passive for a moment. Excuse me. First time SOS is going to go for a full-on attack. The Archons in the front going to soak up as many Banelings as possible. They get quite a lot done in that regard, but as the Archons start to fall, the Ultras getting right on top of the fray. The Lings able to kind of close out what's left, and SOS gets dropped.